I never thought peace could feel this fragile. 2 years after my divorce from Kelly, I finally had a quiet life. My days were simple: fixing cars at the shop, coming home to Emma, my wife now, and spending time with my son Jake. He's 12, too smart for his age, and the only good thing that came out of my first marriage. Kelly and I split after she cheated. It was messy, but I thought it was over. Turns out, for her, it never really ended. She started small, random texts at night, things like, "You'll regret leaving me." Then it turned into calls when she knew Emma was home. Sometimes she'd leave voicemails saying Jake deserved a real family. Emma handled it better than I did. She's calm, patient, never raises her voice. But I could see how much it got to her. Once she found a photo in our mailbox, Kelly and Jake together, smiling, with a note that said, "He'll always be mine." Emma didn't say a word. She just folded it and threw it away. At first, I tried ignoring Kelly. I thought she'd get bored and move on. But it only got worse. She started calling Jake when he was at our house, whispering things like, "Your dad doesn't really care about you now that he has his new family." Jake got quiet after those calls. One night I found him crying in his room. He said, "Mom says you replaced me." That one hit hard. I tried talking to Kelly calmly, told her to stop dragging Jake into this. She laughed. "Maybe you shouldn't have left me," she said. "Maybe your new toy wife should learn her place." Then she hung up. After that, Emma started having trouble sleeping. Every time her phone buzzed, she'd flinch, thinking it was another text from Kelly. Once she even suggested we move. New town, new start. But Jake's school and my shop are here. Why should we be the ones to leave? The final straw came one Saturday morning. Kelly showed up at our house uninvited, screaming from the driveway that I was keeping her son hostage. Jake was inside, terrified. Emma tried to talk her down, but Kelly called her a homewrecker in front of the neighbors. I had to physically block her from coming up the steps. She slapped me before getting back into her car and driving off, tires screeching. That day, I realized something. She didn't just hate me for leaving. She hated the fact that I was happy. She wanted me miserable, like her. That night after Jake went to bed, Emma asked quietly, "Is she ever going to stop?" I didn't answer right away. I just looked at my hands, black with grease, shaking a little. "No," I said finally, "not unless I make her." Emma looked at me then, not scared, just tired. "Please," she said, "don't do anything stupid." I promised I wouldn't. But inside, I already knew I was done being the quiet, patient ex-husband. Kelly had crossed too many lines. She thought she could ruin every bit of peace I had left, poison Jake against me, and humiliate Emma. She thought I'd keep turning the other cheek. She was wrong. That night, when everyone was asleep, I sat alone at the kitchen table, the hum of the fridge the only sound in the house. I took out my phone and scrolled through the dozens of messages, the screenshots I'd saved, the voicemails full of venom. I'd been collecting them for months, proof at first for custody protection. But looking at them now, I realized something. They were also pieces of her downfall. Kelly had spent years trying to destroy my life. Maybe it was time she tasted her own medicine, only slower, quieter, in a way she'd never see coming. That was the moment it clicked. Not anger, not rage, just clarity. I didn't want revenge and fire and screaming. I wanted peace that stayed. And to get it, I had to make sure Kelly learned, really learned, what it meant to lose everything she tried to control. I closed my phone, leaned back, and whispered to the dark kitchen. "All right, Kelly, you want a war? Fine. But this time, I'm the one writing the rules." And I meant every word. It got worse before it got any better. I thought the driveway incident was the end of it. But Kelly had a way of turning small annoyances into something much uglier. She started showing up places she had no right to be. School pickups, Jake's baseball games, even at the little grocery where Emma buys milk. She'd stand a little too close, smile a fake smile, and make a scene if Emma so much as looked in her direction. One morning, I got a call from Jake's teacher. My stomach dropped when I heard her voice. "Mr. Carter, can you come in? Someone reported concerns about Jake's home life." My mind leapt to the worst. I asked who called. The teacher hesitated, then said, "It was an anonymous tip. There were things in the complaint about parental neglect." I felt a coldness like ice in my chest. I called Kelly. She picked up on the second ring, acting like I was the one who called her out. "They think what?" she said, all fake sympathy. "Oh, Mark, that's awful. I could never stand by and watch a kid suffer." My fist clenched around the phone. I knew that voice. It was the same voice she used when she wanted to look like the victim. Within a week, we had a social worker at our kitchen table. Emma answered the questions as calmly as she could. I handed over my phone when they asked for evidence of the calls and texts. We had screenshotted everything. The social worker's face changed as she read through the messages. Late-night voicemails where Kelly told Jake he'd be better off without me. Texts to teachers implying we argued in front of him. It was sickening to watch someone weaponize a child. The social worker left with a promise to investigate, but the damage was already done. School staff started watching Jake like he was fragile glass. Neighbors who used to nod politely avoided eye contact. Every time the phone rang, Emma flinched as if expecting another accusation. Jake started asking questions he shouldn't have to ask. "Dad, is she telling the truth?" he whispered one night, eyes hollow. I swallowed hard. How do you explain that someone you once loved can try to take everything from you to feel powerful? Kelly didn't stop at anonymous tips. She spread rumors at work, lies about me, about Emma, about our home. She found a way to make herself the center of attention. The man she'd left me for came and went, always showing up when she needed an audience, then disappearing when things turned hot. It made me sick, but the worst part was watching Jake internalize it. He started acting out in small ways, snapping at Emma, avoiding me when I talked about my shop, lying about where he'd been so he wouldn't have to admit he'd seen Kelly. One night I followed her. I shouldn't have. Maybe that's what people in movies do. But I did it because I needed to see her, to understand what was driving her. She met with a man in a cheap diner, whispered and laughed, then left with a stack of envelopes. I watched from across the street as she stuffed the envelopes into her purse, triumphant. Whatever deal she was making, it felt like more than petty revenge. It looked planned. Then she did the thing that made my blood run cold. She sent a packet of documents to the school district, claiming Emma was unfit to care for Jake, that Emma yelled, that she neglected him while I worked. The packet was heavy with lies and half-truths, all neatly penned and presented like proof. She even forged a couple of signatures on small notes. When the district called me, I was already breathing through my teeth. We fought that one together. Emma wrote letters. I collected witness statements from neighbors and from the guys at the shop who could vouch for my hours and my behavior. Jake had to sit through an interview with a counselor, answering questions no kid should have to answer. He looked at me afterward like I was a hero for making the answers come out right. I wanted to be a hero, but the truth is I felt tired and old. It was after that interview I sat in my truck for a long time, hands on the steering wheel, staring at the faded steering wheel leather. I thought about all the ways Kelly had slipped poison into our lives, how she used other people as instruments. She wasn't just reckless, she was methodical, and she had learned how to exploit systems, sympathy, bureaucracy, people's desire to fix things without seeing who was pulling the strings. I could have gone to the cops and screamed, dragged her into court and let the judge decide. I considered that, but I knew the law moves slow and public fights leave scars. I wanted something that stopped her without making our family the headline. I wanted a way to make sure she couldn't keep doing this, not just shut her up for a week. So I started watching her the way she watched me. Quiet, patient, looking for patterns, looking for the tiny fractures she left when she boasted too loudly or trusted the wrong person. I talked to a lawyer friend without calling it that. Just asked some questions about what could be done when someone falsified documents, about the paper trail people leave behind when they think they're clever. It wasn't revenge yet. It was reconnaissance. I wanted to know what game she was playing so I could play it better, cleaner, smarter. No yelling in courtrooms, no scenes in grocery store aisles. I wanted something that would undo her without dragging Jake through another circus. That night I told Emma part of what I'd been thinking. She looked at me, eyes small but steady, and for the first time she didn't ask me to walk away. She said, "Do what you have to, Mark, but do it right." It felt like permission and a weight lifted at the same time. I had moved from being angry to being deliberate. The plan wasn't formed yet, But the path was clear. Kelly had made herself visible. She'd left tracks. I intended to follow them until they led to a place where she couldn't touch us anymore. I didn't need a genius plan. I needed a simple one that let Kelly be herself in front of a pen and a witness. She was already doing the heavy lifting, bragging, lying, cutting corners like it was a sport. All I had to do was give her a stage and make sure the floor was solid under me. Money was the lever. Through the grapevine, I learned she was drowning. Late car payments, a payday loan, and a landlord who'd stopped smiling. Jake's coach's wife works mornings at a diner and sees everything. Your ex pays with crumpled 20s and attitude, she told me. Looks like she's always waiting on money from someone who's always 5 minutes away. That tracked. I called Nate, an old friend who cleans out foreclosed places and knows every deed clerk by name. I need something boring, I told him. A beat-up house, an honest seller, and a stack of harmless paperwork that reads like Ambien. He laughed, then said he might have the exact thing. A half-dead farmhouse outside town, owner too old to fix it, happy to sell as is if the buyer handled small liens and hauled off the junk. Nothing flashy, perfect. We built the rumor slow. A mutual friend, Tessa, accidentally mentioned to Kelly that a local guy was paying cash for distressed places and needed someone to line up a buyer of record for a small fee. Kelly heard fee and stopped listening to the rest. I made sure the fee was just big enough to smell easy, $5,000 for paperwork and a handshake, and just tempting enough for her to want more. If you leave an open jar in front of a raccoon, you don't have to explain the lid. Before anything, I checked the recording laws where I live. One-party consent. Good. I wasn't going to trick anyone with gadgets. I was going to press record on my phone and keep my mouth shut. The first time Kelly called about the opportunity, she was cocky, all whispered plans. If your guy doesn't know what he's doing, I can route the deposit and clean it later, she said. You know I've made calls before to shake people loose. She thought she sounded smart. On playback, she just sounded mean. I saved it, labeled the file with the date, put it in a folder. Nate arranged the meeting at the farmhouse kitchen. The seller, Mr. Whitaker, sat at the table in suspenders, hands folded, a man who'd had enough of leaky roofs. Nate's sister, Lily, is a notary who could cite stamp rules in her sleep. The documents were standard. Purchase intent, liability releases, a hold harmless for the seller, and, the key piece, an affidavit of good faith the investor required from anyone brokering or fronting a deal. Most people skim and sign. Kelly doesn't skim. She speedboats. I wrote one paragraph into that affidavit, reviewed by a real attorney friend and crystal clear. I, the undersigned, state under penalty of perjury that I am not engaging in this transaction to harass, intimidate, or otherwise exert personal leverage on any current or former family members of any party, and that any prior reports or complaints I have made to schools, agencies, or employers related to said parties were made in bad faith and are hereby retracted. Plain English. No tricks. If you aren't doing that, you can still sign it. If you are, the ink becomes a mirror. Kelly showed up 15 minutes late in sunglasses and cheap perfume, did a lap through the rooms like she owned them, then sat and started signing. Lily slid each page across, sticky flags marking where to initial. Kelly didn't ask a single question. When the affidavit landed in front of her, she mouthed the title, "Good faith, blah, blah," and scribbled her name, initials on each line, date, stamp. I didn't smile. I watched her pen touch paper like I was watching a fuse burn down. She wanted more, of course. "So the investor wires the deposit to me, and I push it where?" she asked, pretending to play dumb, trying to learn the pipes. Nate shrugged. "It goes to title like it should." She made a face, then pivoted to gossip. "I mean, if this goes clean, I could bring in more. I know people with problems, if you know what I mean." She laughed alone. I let silence answer. Outside, she cornered me by the porch rail. "You know, you could have just asked me for help," she said. "We're not enemies, unless your little wife wants to make it that way." The old heat rose in my throat. I swallowed it and kept my voice flat. "This isn't about you," I said. "It's about getting a roof sold." She rolled her eyes and drove off, tires spitting gravel like punctuation. That night, I laid everything out on the kitchen table. Affidavit, copies of her texts about routing the deposit, the recorded call where she admitted filing complaints to shake people, screenshots of late-night messages to Emma. Emma read the affidavit twice. "She signed this?" she asked, small and tired. I nodded. "With a notary stamp and 3 witnesses?" I wasn't finished. Paper is strong, but patterns are stronger. Over the next week, Kelly sent me messages bragging about talking sense into the school again and keeping pressure on. I didn't answer. Every message sat next to her signature like a matchbox beside a candle. When the lien search cleared and the investor backed out, he'd only ever been a name on a sticky note, Kelly tried to stir chaos to shake loose a cancellation fee. She texted me that the seller was in breach, that she'd make calls unless someone paid her for her time. I let her stack the threats. Then I asked Lily for one more copy of the affidavit, certified. By the time the pile was complete, my plan looked less like revenge and more like housekeeping. Nothing flashy, no fireworks, just a trail that pointed from Kelly's mouth to Kelly's hand to Kelly's stamp. She wanted leverage. She signed it away, and for the first time in months, I slept. Not because it was over, but because the next part was simple. Deliver the truth to the right doors and step back. I started with the quiet doors. First, the police station. Not to press charges, not yet. I asked for the community officer who'd handled a welfare call on our street once. We sat in a small room that smelled like old coffee. I laid the affidavit on the table, then the screenshots, then the audio transcript. I didn't tell a story. I let the pages tell it. Her late-night threats, her brag about filing complaints to shake people, her signature retracting those complaints, notarized, dated, witnessed. The officer read in silence, then leaned back. "You're not here to make a scene," he said. "You're here to make a record." I nodded. He copied everything, logged the affidavit as supplemental evidence tied to prior calls. "If she files another false report," he said, tapping the paper, "this goes straight on top." No drama, just weight added to a file that already knew her name. Next was the school district office. I scheduled an appointment with the student services coordinator. She'd seen us before. I slid the packet across the desk, the affidavit on top with the line highlighted. "Any prior reports were made in bad faith and are hereby retracted." Her eyes widened. She read it twice. "Is this real?" she asked. "Stamped," I said. She exhaled, then pulled Jake's folder and wrote a note in firm, neat handwriting. "We'll mark previous concerns as resolved and not credible," she said. "If there's another call from her, we'll document it and notify you." I walked out lighter by a few pounds I'd been carrying in my shoulders. Her job came next. Kelly worked at a hair salon on Maple, the kind of place with mirrors like windows and gossip like oxygen. I didn't want to ruin anyone's rent money, but I wasn't going to leave a pair of scissors in the hands of someone who cut people for sport. I asked to speak to the owner, a woman named Rosa who kept the books under the register in the piece with a stare. I didn't dump drama on her counter. I gave her the affidavit and the parts that mattered. Harassment of a family, false reports involving a minor, and the line where Kelly retracted them. Rosa read in silence, then looked up. "My clients talk," she said. "They bring kids. I can't have this." She didn't ask me to stay. She didn't ask me to leave. She just thanked me and put the papers in a folder with a rubber band. I didn't need to know what happened after I stepped outside, but 20 minutes later, my phone lit up. "Kelly, you pathetic snake." Then, "You came for my job?" Then, "You think this will scare me?" I didn't answer. I saved the messages and put the phone face down on my passenger seat. 2 days passed. Then the knock came. Not at my door, at hers. I didn't see it, but I heard about it before dinner. Kelly called me, voice shaking with rage. "You set me up," she spit. "Cops, papers. Rosa suspended me pending review. You did this." I let the silence stretch until she filled it. "I'm not scared of you," she said, but her voice said otherwise. "Leave us alone, Kelly," I said. "Leave Jake alone. Leave Emma alone. Every time you don't, the papers follow." She swore at me until the breath ran out. I hung up. That night, Jake asked if we could throw a ball in the backyard. We did until the porch light flicked on by itself, and the bugs started kissing the beam. When we sat on the steps, he leaned on my shoulder. Is it over? He asked. Not forever, I said. But for now. He nodded like that was an answer his bones could carry. The next week was strange and quiet. No midnight calls. No pop-up visits at school. Emma slept through the night for the first time in months. I kept waiting for the other shoe to fall, but when it did, it was smaller than I expected. Kelly didn't show up at the salon. Word traveled faster than a blowout. Some clients asked questions. Rosa said personnel matter and changed the subject. The man Kelly paraded around vanished like a bad idea. She posted a few things online, half claims, half pleas, and got fewer likes than she was used to. That was a different kind of loss for her. The crowd went quiet. Then she tried once more. She showed up at Jake's school at pickup, walked fast and angry toward Emma. I was already there. I stepped between them before a word left her mouth. I held up a manila envelope. Inside was a certified copy of the affidavit, a printout of the school note, and the police incident number. I didn't wave it. I let her see the edges. This is what follows you now, I said, low enough that only she heard. Not me, your signature. Her face hardened, then cracked. For a second, I saw fear's thin wire pull her mouth tight. She turned and walked away without a word. After that, silence. Real silence. The kind that creeps in and sits on the couch with you. I filled it with work, with dinners at our small kitchen table, with Saturday mornings when Emma made pancakes and Jake pretended he didn't like them before eating 5. The house let out a long-held breath. A week later, Kelly called again, but softer this time. Can we talk like adults? She asked. We are, I said. We've always been talking. You just didn't listen. She started to say something, then stopped. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she murmured. You did, I said. You signed it. She went quiet. The line clicked. I stared at the blank screen until my reflection steadied. I didn't celebrate. There wasn't much to celebrate. You don't throw a party because someone stopped hitting your walls. You just fix the dents and sleep. That night, after Jake went to bed, Emma leaned her head on my shoulder at the table cluttered with crayons and mail. Thank you, she said. Nothing dramatic. Just 2 words that felt like warm water. I took the envelope of copies and put it in the top shelf of the hall closet, next to old birthday banners and a half-empty box of nails. Not a trophy, a boundary. If she pushed again, it would be there. If she didn't, it would gather dust with the rest of our surviving. On Sunday, we drove out past the old farmhouse. Someone new had mowed the front yard. The porch still leaned, but the door was open, and I could hear a radio inside playing low. Emma took my hand. You okay? She asked. I watched the wind move through the tall grass like a tired animal finally lying down. Yeah, I said, I'm okay. Peace didn't feel fragile anymore. It felt earned. It felt like something we built with paper and patience, and the decision over and over not to swing back when we could. Kelly taught me the cost of noise. I paid it once and learned the lesson. Now the house was quiet, the good kind. The kind you notice and then forget because living fills it up. I locked the front door that night and didn't check it twice.